Okay, here we have Barrel Aged, and Barrel is an imported steeplechase horse. He's a 16 one-hand 6-year-old thoroughbred gelding, and his pedigree is completely British, so nothing I'm terribly familiar with, but obviously he was running pretty competitively in the UK to justify bringing him over to the US. Unfortunately, since coming to the US, he actually bowed on each front leg, so obviously now he's well rehabbed and obviously not going back into racing. So here he is. Now I we got video of his first post track ride, for which he was a very good boy, but kind of crooked and not terribly soft. I've put a few more rides on him since then, and so he's really much straighter and much softer since that first post track ride. In retrospect, I think he was just kind of nervous, and so that just sort of creates like a lot of noise in their head, and so it's hard for them to hear me quite as clearly. And so I always just find that, on that first post track ride, obviously there's some hard rules, right? When you put your leg on, they have to go, there has to be brakes, they have to, you know, go by the gate and those kinds of things. But aside from that, if they're going to be a little bit crooked and a little bit not quite sorted with the contact, I don't like to put too much pressure on the first ride, because I always think that there's got to be a little degree of nervousness. Even if they're not showing me that nervousness outwardly, I'm sure that they're feeling it internally. And so, sure enough, I got on him again a day or two after his first ride, and he was just like, it was like night and day. He was just we had a wonderful ride. Unfortunately, I didn't have Billy out there with me, so we didn't get any video of it, but he was really excellent, and I was super pleased with him. Just so much softer and so much straighter, and everything was easier, and his brain just seemed very calm. So I've been very pleased with him since then. He's continued to roll right along on that curve. And so today we took him out to, of course, do a little flatting to warm up, and then I've had requests to see him start jumping. Now, obviously, this horse jumps, and he's jumped some, I'm sure, really big steeplechase jumps. However, now that we are riding him as a sport horse and not a race horse, in order to truly present his jumping and athletic ability, he's got to have more buttons installed. He's got to be straighter and more on the aids and all those things. So, you're probably not going to be absolutely blown away by him today, because he's just still got a lot of things to learn before he can show his true athletic ability. But I am 100% sure that scope is no factor for this horse. Now, that being said, he has two old bows. I'm not saying that this horse should be jumping around 4-foot fences, but could he be jumping, 3 foot and under? Absolutely. I think that's a very safe place for him to be, and he'll be very comfortable there. Now, what I really love about him, and I'm sure why he's such a great jumper, is that he has such a nice canter. It's just really balanced and self regulated, and has an excellent feel to it. So I worked the canter actually quite a bit before we actually got to doing poles today, and it just felt quite super. And I will also say that in the trot, the trot is a very workable gait. You can really change it and improve it a lot over time and training. He has quite a nice trot, and he's actually got, I don't know if you necessarily see it in the video, but I certainly feel it when I'm on him, quite a bit of natural suspension in the trot, which is nice. So his left lead is his one that he prefers to pick up right now, which is totally normal for a horse just coming out of their racing career. So to the right, actually, it's not terribly difficult. I just get it on a small circle. I always start on a 20-meter circle. If they give me the wrong lead, I just sort of keep spiraling the circle down until it makes sense to them to pick up the right lead. And so for him right now, that's on like a 10 or a 12-meter circle. But there's no fuss about it. He doesn't get upset or anxious as you're working on it. You just have to keep finding a way to present more clearly what you're asking him to do until he understands and responds, obviously, with the answer that you want. Now, we did walk over a bunch of poles, but the camera malfunctioned a little bit. Some of my clips came up green when I uploaded them to my computer. So we sort of lost the clips of him walking over the poles, but he did walk over all the poles, and he did it very well. So then, of course, we're just gonna have a little trot over the poles. I love how softly he's going over them. I love when he wants to just naturally land in a nice balanced canter like that. he's not very impressed by these things, which he shouldn't be because obviously he has jumped quite impressive jumps in his life. And so that's totally fine. You know, when he sort of loses enthusiasm for the poles and realizes he can just trot over and stay in the trot, that's totally fine. Although I really like how he did that last little pile of poles. Very softly, you know, straight and nicely using the poles as a really nice canter transition to canter away in a soft balance canter. And now he's like, I don't think I have to work that hard at this, which he's correct. He did get a little bit excited to be doing some poles and cavalettis. On the flat, he's quite quiet, but to jump, now I'm not saying that obviously he wasn't like a maniac when we started jumping, but he definitely got a little bit more excited, a little bit more forward thinking, which is all good things. That was very cute to that cavaletti. Now, the main thing with him that I talked about quite a bit in his first ride video is just that the thing that he's most needs to address first is that he wants to overbend to the left and pop out that right shoulder. So really, both directions, it doesn't matter which way you're going. You're working on, well, if you're going to the left, you're working on straightening or counterbend to try and tuck in that outside shoulder. And if you're going to the right, of course, you're working to want to get him sort of lateral off your inside leg and finding flexion to the right. And so the same thing applies when you start jumping. Of course, that gets a little bit harder though, because you're adding the element of going over things. So there, to both of those cross rails, he's being a very good boy, of course, but he's just a little bit to the right. You know, he's not jumping the center of the cross rail; he's off to the right side. So what I'm thinking about is just really working so hard to get him kicked up off my right leg. And so here, right there, I did. That was very good. We sort of came out of the corner. I got him to take that step off my right leg, which got us right to the center of the X. And then he was able to jump it much better because he was straight through his shoulder. So that was really good. I love how even though he obviously he overjumped that cross rail, it was the first time we went to it, but he still cantered away in such a nice soft canter. You know, absolutely no thoughts of wanting to land and be excitable, which is understandable, but he does not give me that feeling. And then that was very good.